Welcome, everybody. We have a fabulous show for you today. We have inspiring leaders with lots of great ideas, and I hope you join by asking tons of questions into the chat room. Today, we have Linda LoRe. Linda LoRe is the founder and CEO of Enjoy Global, a gamified culture transformation platform which enables employees to connect to their company's mission and goals. Oh, do we need that nowadays? But Linda's a lot more than that. She was also former CEO of Giorgio Beverly Hills, and when it was sold to Procter & Gamble, she became a senior executive there. In addition, she was CEO of Fredericks of Hollywood. Linda is spectacular. You're going to love her. She's an expert in retail, manufacturing, fashion, and beauty. And joining her is Janelle Bieler. Janelle is the Senior Vice President of ADECCO. ADECCO is a $12 billion workforce solutions company headquartered in Switzerland, and Janelle worked her way up the ranks to become Senior Vice President of 2/3 of their US operation. She is a superstar. I'm Larraine Segil, Chair, CEO, and founder of the Exceptional Women Awardees Foundation. Why did we create this foundation? We enable high-level, high-potential women to rise in their careers. Why? Well, when I arrived here 46 years ago as an immigrant from South Africa, I was clueless. In my early career as a lawyer, and then when I went into business, I had no one to ask. I didn't know if I had the right job or the right career. And finally, I was fortunate to become CEO of a number of companies in healthcare and aerospace and professional services. And all the while, I kept saying to myself, if I ever make it in this amazing country, I'm going to come back and find women who walk the road less traveled, help them be surrounded by a network of other women who will support them in their careers. And that's exactly what we've done. And every month we're going to have a show where we will feature 2 women like these amazing Exceptional Women Awardees here tonight, and you will learn from them as I do every day. So let's get right to it. Linda LoRe, you have been a turnaround expert in normal times. These are not normal times. We're talking about pandemic times. How do you turn around a company in pandemic times?
Well, Larraine, fortunately, fundamentals of business haven't changed. Although all of our surroundings have changed and the way we do it may need to change. So number one, you've got to make sure you have a pulse on your customer and you understand how to keep your people engaged. And that's through massive communication and through making sure that your people understand your mission and your goals. And fortunately, we have more tools today, especially with people working from home, to be able to connect with each other via digital.
Oh, that's terrific, Linda. And you know, you are such a great communicator. I love the way you put that because communication is so key. We're going to come back to that. But Janelle, the world of work has changed so dramatically. I know that you've been tracking trends at ADECCO. What have you seen, and what are your recommendations for all of us who are looking at these immense changes in the workplace?
Well, you're right. And the world of work has changed. Remote work is here to stay. That is definitely the biggest change that we've seen. We are all working in very
We seem to be getting some. Janelle, I think we lost some of it. Oh gosh, we lost a little bit of Janelle's sound. So in the meantime, Janelle, while we hopefully can sort out the technical side of that, I'm going to go back to Linda for a moment. Linda, managing companies the way you have, when you look at the intersection of talent management along with the turnaround issues, how do you manage that? That has got to be hard.
Well, fortunately, we have the ability to really tap into who our key players are. And one of the things that you have to do when you're working on a turnaround, because speed is of the essence, is to really understand who your hitters are. I use kind of that analogy, meaning who are the people that you really have to rely on in the clutch times. And you need to make sure that they understand what the goals are, what the mission is, and that they are engaged with the company. That is critical. The engagement piece is one that a lot of people forget about when they're moving very quickly. And creating a positive environment for your people so that they can parlay that to your customers, your suppliers, and to each other is critical as well. And fortunately, again, we're living in a digital age, so we can do a lot of that with online platforms.
Yeah, that's great, Linda. And thank goodness, Janelle, we managed to pick her back up. And here she is. Janelle, give us a little bit of those insights again, because we didn't get most of what you said about the changes in the world of work.
Probably the biggest shift. Are you having a problem hearing me?
A little bit of problems. We can't hear you as clearly as we'd like to. So I think the internet is not being very kind to us tonight. Have a feeling everybody is still on the internet, maybe watching Netflix. But Janelle, give it another try. And if not, I'll go back to Linda. And I can promise you, Janelle, we will have you back on the show again when hopefully people are not all using the internet at the same time. But give it another try, Janelle.
All right, third time's a charm, Larraine. I was just mentioning that the biggest trend that we've seen changing is in remote work, right? So the remote work is here to stay. We're seeing that more and more people are now being able to do their jobs from their kitchen tables. So that's probably the biggest trend. Secondly, we're also seeing the critical need for transferable skills. So as jobs evolve and change, it's happening very quickly. The need to be able to have multiple skill sets and to adapt quickly is another big trend in kind of the future of work as we see it.
Now, those are very important factors. And so the candidate journey has changed. What would you say to a candidate, and I'm sure there are many out there with 10, 11% unemployment, how do they have to change themselves to find the right job in these circumstances?
Upskill and reskill are probably the two most critical pieces. So continuing to upskill and learn new things that are coming about and take advantage of the opportunity to continue to reskill. Digital is huge, as we're seeing right now, troubleshooting technical issues, right? Being able to work in a digital environment is by far the biggest skill that people are asking to learn right now. So the more that you can educate yourself on that and look for opportunities to hone your digital skill set, the more marketable you will be.
So Janelle, while I have you, I want to ask you all these questions in case we lose you again. Tell us about what ADECCO does for the upskilling side of things and the reskilling side of things. And also give a little background on ADECCO, because not everybody knows what ADECCO does and what you do in your work.
Absolutely. ADECCO is all about matching great candidates with great companies. And we have a whole suite of workforce solutions, everything from temporary to permanent work, gig, freelance work, and an entire company that's based on upskilling and reskilling. So our sister company of General Assembly is actually completely based on programs that you can enroll in to learn a whole new skill set. So one example that I like to always share is that you can enroll in their data scientist program and go from someone who has an interest and aptitude for that type of work, and over the course of a couple of months, come out of the program fully ready to take on a job as a data scientist. And that's just one of the skill sets that they focus on. So incredible opportunity within General Assembly to learn a whole different skill set, as well as a number of reskilling opportunities within ADECCO to do everything from learning soft skills to those hard tactical skills that may help you in your next role.
You know what, Janelle, you just made me so happy, because there is so much bad news around us nowadays. To hear something like that, which I'm sure that our listeners, and by the way, folks out there, please ask some questions in the chat room. I know that you must have them. To hear what you just said means that there's really hope for people who are unemployed to redesign their lives. So I'm going to go to Linda for a moment, because Linda, I've been meaning to ask you this for a long time. You have run iconic brands like Giorgio and even at Procter & Gamble and also at Fredericks. It breaks my heart to see some of these incredible retail brands disappearing. Give us some of your thoughts on that and the future of retail.
Well, the thing is that so many companies fail to move along with the times. And when an iconic brand loses its connection to the consumer, that is when the business starts to decline. And it happens faster than you think. What's going on, what happens is people get very set in their ways of being able to project their brand to the world at large, and they forget that the world around them is changing. I mean, just look at how fast the world has changed in the last 3 months. Now, if I am running a brand right now, I have to be on the spot thinking about how am I going to bring the customer along with me and really manage to pivot to meet the needs, not only of the customer, but of the employees that are working in the workforce, and to be able to be relevant to what's going on in the world at large. And unfortunately, a lot of really awesome brands failed to move with the times. And that is tragic.
It is. It really is. And, you know, for people who remember them from their childhood and their mothers or their fathers went to those brands, and then to just have them disappear is quite challenging. So, Janelle, you're in a global company, and I know Linda's also run global companies. So, Janelle, being part of a global organization, do you think that we in the US are competing with people from other countries for our jobs, or is that just really not happening?
I think it depends on the type of role. So when you look at some roles that can be remote, right? You may have you know, an opportunity for people to work in other places and not be centered there. But there's still such a large piece of our business. You just look even at the very beginning of this pandemic and how many essential businesses were around where people were physically going into a workplace. And that's still happening today, where people need to be where the jobs are. So I know there is a lot of talk of remote and the digital age making it so that you can get your talent from anywhere. And I think that that's applicable in some areas. But when you look at the workforce overall, there is still such a huge population here in the US that need to be where the jobs are, where I don't see that happening.
Well, that's a relief, I'm sure, for a lot of the people who are watching. We may have some questions from Justin, so he might pop in anytime to give us a few questions from our wonderful audience. And if you haven't put your question in, please do. I wanted to just say one more thing before we go to questions, and that is to ask Linda, how are you turning around a company? You put yourself right in the middle of it, which I know you love to do because you love challenges. You are turning around 2 manufacturing companies right now, and you have done exactly what you said people should do. You pivoted. Could you give us a little bit on that?
Well, both companies, one is in the hospitality industry, which is sadly the hard hit industry. And so when that company was faced with the shutdowns that were happening, and literally the hospitality industry went off a cliff, they had to really look to see what could they do to become relevant in the world today. And so they began making some of the equipment for the other company that is their sister company, which is in the medical field. But also they began making products that are for a post-COVID world. And what those would be are things like hand washing stations and high-end mobile partitions to be able to have the business that you have when we come out of COVID, to be able to still socially distance, but still have a great experience within the brands that they serve, which are the high-end hotels, high to medium-end hotels.
Yes, and I sure hope that travel gets back on track. That's what our next show is about, by the way. I'll tell you all about that at the end of the show. But Justin is telling me we've got some questions. So Justin, you're next.
Hello, everybody. This is Justin. I'm in remotely today from the Question Command Center for Exceptional Women and tracking the streams across all the wonderful places that we're pushing this content out to and seeing some great things coming through. The first one actually comes from Austin, Texas, where I happen to be. Now, the question is this, and it is, what are some of the biggest challenges that you and other leaders that you know are currently facing? And how are these things different today than they were during pre-COVID times? And that comes from Crystal Tinsley in Austin, Texas.
Well, go for it, Linda. And then Janelle, maybe we'll take the next question for you. Go ahead, Linda.
Okay, so the biggest challenges that I see are the fact that no one knows what's going to happen and when. So we are facing a planning crisis, if you will. And the planning crisis that we're facing means that we have to be prepared for a multitude of different activities that will be happening in the business world. Luckily, we can communicate digitally. There are many different ways that we can do that. We can keep our people engaged, and that's critically important, to keep our people engaged and to keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening. But the largest challenge that we have is what is going to happen and when, and that's a short-term challenge. The long-term challenge is, after we come out of this, what is the new normal? So there are lots of discussions that are going on about what the new normal is and how do we as executives really chart the path for a new normal. And a lot of times it's us deciding what the new normal needs to be so that we can move forward in a world that is post-pandemic.
Yeah, that's great. And Janelle, there's a question. I was just looking in the chat, and Justin, maybe you want to read that one out about what young women should be thinking.
Yeah, we've got a couple other good ones here. And so this one has to actually do with the best piece of advice. And so I just wanted to skip across over to the East Coast. Nicole Chapman from Edison, New Jersey asks, what is the best piece of advice that you've been given over your career in leadership that you would want to pass on to other women?
Okay, Janelle, go for that one.
I love it. I think it's a great piece of advice, and it's very applicable to also how we are trying to lead, I think, in this time of crisis. And that is to lead with empathy and transparency. So Linda mentioned communication, and I think it is so critical at any time to make sure that you are communicating with all the people around you, whether it's your team, whether it's your leadership, your clients, but having that communication and being as empathetic as possible. So when you think about what we're going through right now, where our work world has changed, our kids are home, we're trying to homeschool. There is so many different factors that are new that we are trying to navigate. And being able to remember that it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. So when I think about that piece of advice on how to really lead and have every interaction lead with empathy, I just think it's so critical right now that if you want to be an effective leader, you have to have that piece of empathy and that emotional intelligence to make sure that you're communicating in that way with the people around you.
Yeah, that's so true. And in fact, we coined the phrase Chief Empathy Officer for CEO, because I think that's where a lot of people and leaders are going. So I'd be very remiss if I didn't mention that both of you are mothers of young children. So I know that that has been particularly onerous for women who are working full time and also trying to take care of their kids. So homeschooling is not easy at the best of times, but when you've got a full-time job, it's really hard. So Linda, a little bit from you on that, and then maybe Janelle, you have some advice for some of our listeners who are in the same position as well.
Well, when you have a full-time job, and you're working at home on that full-time job, it creates a whole other group of complexities. Probably the single biggest issue that I had during this time was the online school, because not all the school districts were proficient in how to handle online school. And my 12-year-old had a heck of a time being able to manage through that. And it really, I saw her grades go from really high grades, and then they took a dip. And that was so hard for her because she lost a lot of her self-esteem. I think the thing that we have to do is, this is where what Janelle says about empathy comes in very strongly. And that is, we not only have to have empathy for the people that we're leading, we have to have empathy for everyone, including ourselves. And that's a place where a lot of women especially have a difficult time, because we're so busy managing the household, and now we're home and our children are home, and we really have to kind of hone in. I had many conversations over Zoom with teachers to try to figure out what to do to help my daughter through this. It can be very daunting, but the good news is that everyone is going through it, and we really can come together and make this better.
Yeah, that's so true. Janelle, you've always said values shine in a crisis. So give us some thoughts on how you've managed. You've got really little ones at home.
Yes, so I do have little ones, and I couldn't agree more with Linda that first of all, this is hard, and I think we have to admit that and acknowledge that, and cut ourselves some slack, because it's not always going to be perfect, and I think everybody's doing the best that they can with the situation. But when you talk about values shining in a crisis, I think that can apply to both companies as well as individuals, because when you are going through something like this or any sort of crisis, you can't hide behind a marketing statement or a well-crafted social media post. The way that you treat people and the way that you act is what shines in a crisis. So are you going to be the type of individual or company that practices what you preach? Are you putting your people first? Are you putting yourself first when you need to make sure that you're taking care of you and having that strength to take care of others around you? So I think it's critical when you are going through a time like this to make sure that the actions are speaking louder than words, because it's very easy to say what you want to put out there, and it's very different to be that type of leader and be that type of person that is acting it every day.
Absolutely. And people see right through it if you're not sincere. You know, there's a question in the chat room that I have to take, because both of you can give us great answers. At EWA, even though all of us and all of our women awardees are extremely successful, we still suffer from self-doubt. And one of our questioners has said, how do you get over the issue of self-doubt? So Linda, since you've been a mentor liaison to a number of our women, give us your answer on that.
Well, fake it till you make it, for one thing. But the self-doubt, you're always going to question yourself. I will question myself after this and say, how was I? Did I do the right thing? One of the things that I try to help my mentees with, and Janelle knows this very well, and Larraine, you've heard me say it a million times, it is so important as a leader to be able to move to the eye of the storm, because that's where you find calm. And if you can get a moment to take a breath and find your calm, you will find your courage. And that is so critical, especially during very difficult times.
Yeah, for sure. And Janelle, I know you've been fortunate to have Linda as your mentor liaison, and then you, of course, have paid it forward to other women. So what are your thoughts? And you must be dealing with literally thousands of very jittery employees who are concerned about everything, their home, their future, their job. How are you dealing with that?
You know what Linda said about moving to the eye of the storm is advice I have taken very seriously. So thank you for that, because it certainly helps as you're going through any type of crisis. But I think something that I talk to my teams quite a bit about, and something that's worked well for me, is when you do have self-doubt, is you just have to be real about it. You're not always going to have all the answers, and that is okay. I think you mentioned earlier, Larraine, that when it's not authentic, people know it. And it's okay to let people know that you don't have the answer to something, and to continue to seek and learn and figure out ways to make yourself better. So I think that's important for everybody. Nobody functions without self-doubt, and you have to be willing to talk about it and push past that and learn. And I think the more that we can make that okay, the easier it is for people to ask us for help, and makes it easier for us to ask for help.
Absolutely. I see we have a question from Susan Glass, Vancouver. Hi, Susan. And you asked, how can a person be considered high potential in an organization? So, Janelle, what do you think?
High potential, I think, is somebody that not only shows the hard skills, right? So there's a certain aptitude for the role, but it's somebody who is willing to take those extra steps. Somebody that is willing to put in the time to learn and develop, whether it be a new skill, soft skill, or a hard skill. That's what I look for in people that I would consider high potential, is who is willing to learn and continue to evolve in that role that I know I can count on to continue to grow within the organization.
Yeah, that's great. Linda, Derek Prince from Massachusetts has asked a very technical question. How do you bring a turnaround into positive cash flow? And by the way, I want to write that down too, because that's one of the hardest things to do.
Well, first of all, you have to have an absolute 100% bird's eye on your cash flow and balance sheet. It is critical that you know where every penny is being spent. So as far as positive cash flow and retrenching for positive cash flow, I don't know how many people that are on this program have been able to take advantage of some of the government programs, but those are helping us get through some difficult times. However, it is really important that your balance sheet was in good shape prior to that, or you're going to just drag your problems along with you. Derek, it is really critical that people in the organization understand, even non-financial people, how they impact cash flow. And it is really, really important for you to make hard decisions fast and early. And that will help you to be able to retrench and move forward in a difficult cash time.
So I'll throw this out to both of you. Mo Davidian has asked, how do we see artificial intelligence affecting the workplace and automation? Janelle.
Well, I'll just tell you.
Oh, go ahead, Linda. Go ahead.
Automation is critical. I think that there's so much that's going on with automation, and you're able to get data much faster, et cetera. Artificial intelligence is still trying to find its way as to what applications are critical for the future of business. And I think there's a lot of trial and error going on right now. Make no mistake, it's here to stay. However, I think companies are still struggling with how to do the transition and what really works, machine versus person and person versus person. And so that is it, but for sure that automation is critical.
Wow. Well, that's terrific. We need a whole day with you, both of you, because you both have so much insight to offer us. And I think you'll just have to come back, because this show is way too short for us to explore all of the insights and expertise that you have. And thank you both for being with us. Linda and Janelle, you are both superstars, and we're so proud and honored to have you as part of EWA. I wish we had more time. And thank you to all of you who have actually put questions in. You're welcome. Thank you for putting questions in. There are some wonderful questions. If you didn't get your question answered, come on back with us next time. We are going to make sure that we get it in next time, and tell us that you were on this show and we didn't take your your question. We really want to hear from you. So we have lots of wonderful folks coming up in our upcoming shows. We have The Future of Travel with Melinda Yee Franklin, who is the Managing Director of United Airlines, and Papia Gambalin, who is President of Platinum Advisors, a lobbying group who will talk about the intersection of business and government. I hope that you all come back and visit with us. It has been our honor and pleasure to be with you today. See you on August the 3rd at 5 p.m. Pacific. We will be coming with another extraordinary woman, exceptional women, the road less traveled. Thanks, everybody. See you then.